Streaming from Oklahoma's own digital studio, this is Stephen Nehrenz with This Week in Weather.
Howdy y'all, Meteorologist Stephen Nehrenz here. Welcome to This Week in Weather on Wednesday, June 4th, episode 5 of This Week in Weather, beginning Wednesday, June 4th. Hope you've been having a great week so far, enduring, more rain and storms. I know most of us are probably pretty tired of it at this point. Guess what? There's more on the way. We're going to discuss that in just a second. I'm also going to kind of give you a little look back at, as we've now gotten through what we consider meteorological spring. That's March, April, and May. Kind of the stats that we had. No surprise, we had a ton of rain, quite a few tornadoes as well. I'm going to give you kind of an update on those statistics here in just a second. Of course, as I always start off with things here, and just a reminder, with This Week in Weather, I've been starting to get, week by week, a few more folks asking questions and suggestions and things like that they want to hear answered on This Week in Weather or hear me cover, as far as kind of interesting topics. Again, we'll get more and more of these as we go along, but if you would like to send me some comments or suggestions, you can see my email address there on the screen, my Facebook page as well, and also on our News on 6 YouTube channel, whether you want to comment under the This Week in Weather video, if you want to comment on some of the posts, the separate text posts that we've been making on our YouTube channel as well. Both of those are great ways to kind of, give me some feedback and suggestions about things that you maybe want to hear a little bit more of. Usually when I've been doing this, I've been starting with kind of all the stats and stuff, and then I get to the forecast. I just wanted to briefly talk about how the next day or two will be nice and quiet for a change. Again, we're recording this here on Wednesday, June 4th, and our Wednesday, pretty comfortable after we've been getting kind of into an early summer-like feel here recently. Our Wednesday, not worrying about big-time thunderstorms, no severe weather threats, cooler temperatures, highs today into the 70s. Certainly, like I said, a little bit better than we've been doing here the last couple weeks from strictly a temperature standpoint. As we head into Thursday, mostly quiet conditions for Thursday as well. Be starting to warm back up a little bit. With storms mostly staying off to our west for, I'd say, a good chunk of Thursday. We get past Thursday, and then that does start to change a little bit more. You've probably been noticing the muggies going up here over the last few weeks, and again, this happens towards the tail end of spring, especially when we start getting a ton of rain, as we have been getting for a lot of our April and May. There's all that moisture in the soil, and some of that moisture in the soil starts getting put back up starts evaporating. It's called evapotranspiration, actually. Big nerdy term, I know, but that starts putting some of that moisture back up into the lower parts of the atmosphere. You start feeling that humidity, right? We are going to have more and more of those muggy days over the next several days, late in the week into the upcoming weekend. One, that just means you feel the humidity more. Two, that means there will be, kind of a heat index when we have those sunnier days. And then also that added moisture, that's more instability for thunderstorms, rain and thunderstorms to work with, which is what keeps the flooding threats going, keeps those severe weather threats on the increase as well. We may see that tail off early next week as hopefully we get a bit of a weather pattern change in the jet stream to start pushing some of the storm chances away from us. Still several days down on that. All right, so I mentioned kind of the spring stats. Like I said, the official end of spring, when we reach the summer solstice, that's still a couple weeks away. What's called meteorological spring is just a way for us to kind of an easier way for us to quantify the stats. March, April, and May is what we're looking at as far as rainfall totals, tornado totals, things like that. So I'll go kind of full on the camera, on the graphics here, so you can see what the rainfall totals were for March, April, and May. It was a lot of rain. I know that's no surprise to anyone, but Tulsa had over 20 inches of rain through the March, April, May timeframe, the majority of that in April and May. March was actually a somewhat dry month, but April, of course, as you know, was our wettest April on record. May was not our wettest May on record, but it was up there. Look at some of these rainfall totals. Okmulgee, over 25 inches. Okemah, over 30 inches of rain for spring 2025. And to kind of put that in perspective, that is roughly twice as much rain as we are supposed to get in a typical spring. Tulsa, I would say our average for March, April, May, April and May in particular, March, April, May would be about half, roughly, of what the numbers were on the screen. So obviously just a copious amount of water over the last 90 days, particularly April and May. And this is kind of how that breaks down month by month in Tulsa, just to show you that for the year to date. I haven't included the first few days of June. Of course, we've already picked up some rain these first few days of June. I haven't included those stats in here yet. Of course, we'll be adding those on as the month goes along. But through the first 5 months of the year, we are, again, way ahead of schedule, almost 8 inches above what's considered normal rainfall-wise for this time of year. So, off to a running head start again. This in particular, wettest springs on record, again, that March, April, May timeframe. Our third wettest spring on record for Tulsa specifically. These are Tulsa-specific stats. I also want you to know, as you see kind of the on the screen there, some of the springs that we had more rain than. Notice that this spring, a little bit more, a minimal amount, but a little bit more than spring 2015, a little bit more than spring 2019. And as you are well aware, if you've lived here in Green Country for a while, you know that those were very, very soggy, stormy time periods. In particular, we all remember how bad the flooding was at the tail end of May 2019. We had more rain this spring than spring of 2019. Now, perspective and time scale is everything, right? So it's important to remember in 2015 and 2019, both of those springs, a lot of that rain was more heavily focused on the month of May, which is what led to some of the more widespread flooding problems that we had in 2015 and 2019. Was a lot of it came in a shorter time period in May. This time around, here in 2025, we kind of spread it out over 2 very, very wet months of April and May. Of course, we've had some flooding problems, but I think that's one of the reasons why, even though it's been extremely soggy, we haven't seen, kind of some of the same flooding scenes we saw in 2019, because it's been over a slightly longer time period. Having said that, we really don't need any more heavy rain anytime soon, and there's more to come over the next several days. So flooding is still going to be top of mind as we head into the next about 6 to 7 day period from the end of this weekend, even the beginning of next week. Of course, tornadoes, we've had a lot of those as well, as you know. I've been showing you this graphic that has the average number, those red bars, that's the average number of monthly tornadoes for Oklahoma, kind of the long-term climatological average. And I'll go kind of full screen on the graphic again so you can read those numbers a little bit better. So those are the averages in the red bars. I've put kind of up in the corner in the text where we've been for 2025 so far. So the yearly average for tornadoes across the entire state of Oklahoma would be, you see 58.8, so round up, about 59 tornadoes. And again, that's, as you're well aware, that fluctuates somewhat wildly at times from year to year, but that would be kind of our average. Look where we are year to date through the end of May, 59 tornadoes. So if we didn't have one more tornado the entire year in Oklahoma, that would be an average year. As you're well aware, that's not going to happen. There will be more to come. And in fact, we already had a couple yesterday, Tuesday, across portions of central Oklahoma and southern Oklahoma. Those totals, we'll add those in here as we go through the month. But notice where we were. April was above normal. May, our May of 2025, from a tornado stat standpoint, was actually close to normal or average. It was still very, very busy, right? And we didn't have, thankfully, nearly as many tornadoes as we did in April and May of 2024. We didn't have a repeat of that, but we still had plenty, as you're well aware, over these past couple months. And June can still provide quite a few of those on its own as well. And the jet stream pattern that we're in right now is still a little more reminiscent of late spring than early summer. Again, in early June, that's not terribly surprising. We can still kind of have this pattern setting up where the jet stream is still kind of that southwesterly flow pattern. Storm systems off to our west and the west coast of the United States kind of come riding up into the plains. They follow that jet stream flow up into the plains, interact with all the instability and the moisture at the surface, and provide more thunderstorm chances. Well, we're still in that pattern right now. I just kind of want to show you how that progresses for us in the big picture over the next several days. That upper level ridge, that heat dome that starts to build in during the summer. Now, it usually doesn't start up in early June, but this time of year we start kind of keeping an eye on when that develops, when that strengthens and starts to shut down the storm chances and crank up the heat. Not happening quite yet, even though that upper level ridge is centered to our south. So these storm systems, as you go through Thursday into Friday, they keep coming out of the southwestern United States up into the plains, provide us those storm chances, again, as we go into Thursday and into Friday and into the weekend as well. Now, by the weekend, the pattern kind of flips around a little bit. We start to see systems coming at us from the north, out of the northern plains. as that northwest flow in the jet stream starts to develop. That doesn't shut down the storm chances, though. That just continues to provide us these storm threats. And a lot of these look like they're going to be kind of morning storm complexes as we go through the weekend and the beginning of next week. Like I said, if we want these storm chances to shut off, we need that big H, that circle H there on the screen. That's the upper level ridge. We need that to strengthen and to build in and start pushing the stronger jet stream flow away from us and pushing these storm systems away from us. But until that fully happens, the weather pattern is still going to be relatively unsettled. Even into next week, there could still be, even as the ridge is trying to strengthen, still some storm systems trying to come up under that upper level ridge and bring us some additional shower and storm chances. As far as how much instability are we going to be working with over the next several days, I know I've had some folks say they like seeing this graphic. And as I've continued to say when I show you this graphic and talking about instability, this is only one of many factors that we look at when we're talking about thunderstorm development and severe thunderstorm development. The long and short of it is we get from the end of spring into summer, most days we have instability at the surface. That doesn't mean storms will form, because you need to have some sort of forcing mechanism for storms to develop, an upper level storm system, a cold front or dry line to the surface, things like that to provide lift in the atmosphere for storms to form. We will have that as we head towards late in the week. After our nice, cool, stable air for our Wednesday, I think most of our Thursday will be okay as well. Thursday night and early Friday morning, that warm, humid air mass starting to return from the Gulf, surging back to the north. So that instability develops as that next storm system swings across the plains and brings us probably a storm complex in eastern Oklahoma by early Friday morning. Watch us just kind of rinse and repeat this process. Friday evening into Friday night, pretty unstable air mass as storms try to develop through Saturday morning. Saturday night into very early Sunday morning, pretty unstable air mass as storms trying to develop. Late Sunday into early Monday, a very unstable air mass as more thunderstorms start to develop. So it's gonna take us a while to really kick this storm pattern. And here's kind of the rainstorm timeline from the end of the week into the weekend. You notice that, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, a lot of this is focused on the morning time frames. So I think Friday morning, we're planning on being a little bit on the rowdy side of things as a squall line moves through. There's a possibility that storms fire back up Friday evening, Friday night. Of course, a big weekend ahead of us. Tulsa tough here in Tulsa. So obviously we're watching the weather like a hawk. And Friday evening, there's kind of some uncertainty here. There's certainly potential that Friday evening, Friday night, more storms develop. That could bring us another squall line Saturday morning. There's a possibility of another squall line for some of us Sunday morning as well. Again, it's just going to take us a long time to really get this pattern to settle down. Now, as far as the severe weather threats that we're going to be dealing with, I think damaging winds are going to be kind of the primary thing that we would be focusing on with these squall lines, these morning storm complexes, Friday morning, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, possibly even Monday morning. We're going to be getting pretty tired of this at a certain point. Also flooding. Again, you just saw the rainfall stats that we've had, and as you're well aware how soggy it's been, it just does not take much heavy rain at this point for us to flood because of how saturated our soils are, all the runoff that's happening. So as these storm complexes roll through from the end of the week into the weekend, damaging winds and I think flooding are going to be some kind of our biggest threats that we're going to be watching for. This would be the possibility of additional rainfall over the next 7 days. Could be, on order of another 2, 3, 4 inches of rain, maybe locally higher totals over a 7-day period. Won't happen all at once, but that is more than enough rain to, as you would expect, cause more flooding concerns as we continue on into June. And, eventually we'll dry out, but I think some of us want that to happen sooner rather than later. And a lot of folks are asking too, like, okay, so when is there signs of that upper level ridge finally starting to take hold, finally starting to weaken the jet stream flow around here and push storm chances away from us? Take a look at the big picture view here. Look at the date on the screen. If you kind of up in the upper left corner, see how that says Thursday, June 19th. Hopefully it won't take that long, but I'm just letting you know that there is a possibility that we've got to get through another 1 to 2 weeks of a kind of persistently stormy pattern before we get to maybe the middle of the month and that summer jet stream really starts to take hold. The upper level ridge build starts to push those storm chances further away from us. Of course, the trade-off is once that happens, the heat starts cranking up as well, and it's we're going to have a lot of muggy heat to go through for a while once that happens, because again we've had a ton of rain the last couple months here, so it's going to be muggy as we head into the first half of the summer. So again, it's gonna be a little bit of a long haul, I think, before these storm chances start to shut down on us. Is the long and short of it. So hang in there. We will eventually get some quieter weather on the horizon, just not quite yet. Again, one more reminder. Again, if you've got questions, comments, suggestions about what you'd like to see on This Week in Weather, you know where to find me. With my email address, Facebook page, like I said, comments on our YouTube channel as well. We've been, like I said, been getting more and more of those each week. I really do like seeing those because it helps me kind of gauge what you would like me to discuss here. And I know that there were actually a couple of questions already recently on YouTube about some tornadoes, a question about EF5 tornadoes. Didn't have time to get to that today, but I did see that question. I'll try to address that in future episodes of This Week in Weather. And then, like I said, any other questions, comments you have that you would like me to talk about here, I am happy to hear them because I want this to be something that is helpful for you and maybe the content that you would like to see and hear from me here from the News on 6 Digital Desk. So again, thanks for watching This Week in Weather here on Wednesday, June 4th. Hope you have a great day. Be kind, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching this Oklahoma's own digital studio live stream from the Bob Mills Weather Center. Stay with News on 6 online and on television anytime for the latest weather updates to keep you safe and informed.